By next week, our country will be celebrating yet another democracy day. Your reaction, and what do you think we have achieved so far, and what do you think Nigerians should be expecting come celebration day for 59 years? So that's just basically two questions which we want you to just take it.
Well, first, the issue of malaria and Lassa fever are two distinct. Two distinct in the sense that Lassa fever is a creation of the Western world imposed and domiciled on Black Africa. There is a very strong conviction from the people of Africa that it is a disease scientifically created to expand drug and medicinal markets in Africa. Unfortunately for us as a country, our generosity of playing the big brother in Africa, where our doors are usually open, including our windows, led to the deposit of that unfortunate disease. You recall the entry of the unfortunate Liberian nurse that actually domiciled this thing in our country. And you will also recall that arising from the hue and cry government and successive government after the Jonathan administration, specifically talking about the current regime, put necessary machinery in motion. And like you rightly cited, we thought the Lassa fever has become a history. But the challenge of development is such that we must continue to confront ourselves with these ugly realities and scenarios. We have not reached the medical stage that by period we will be able to have an immediate and permanent response to this kind of global medical challenges. Therefore, I would not want to hold anybody responsible for the re-emergence of Lassa. What is important as a country is for us to immediately, like we are doing now, address it and to find out how come that we are returning back to Egypt. I mean, we are returning back to the desert after we thought we had migrated to Egypt long ago. I mean, this is a big challenge to those the operators in our health sector. It is a big challenge also to people responsible in position of authority, including yours sincerely, and that is why we discharge our duty this afternoon by thoroughly debating it and urging the necessary authorities concerned to take action, citing our readiness as Parliament to give whatever support through appropriation and legislation to empower those in position of authority of the health sector in the country to address the menace. The issue of malaria, I mean, as a nation too, we cannot be tired of discussing it. It is unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that Morocco here, I traveled to Morocco and I arrived with some remaining bat of malaria in me. I arrived the country. And when I was feeling weak, I went to a pharmacy, a small clinic, and I said malaria. They said, what? Malaria? I said, what is malaria? I said, you don't know malaria? I said, you don't know malaria? Morocco, you don't know. In fact, I was laughing at them, they were laughing at me because I was thinking they were joking. In Morocco here, they have over the past 2 decades, they have finished with the issue of malaria. And we are 50% over and above them, financially speaking. I do not know whether as a country, because of our population, because of our diverse land, or because of our attitude to issues, I cannot understand. It has become one recurring decimal that we have not been able to address as a country. We went to Saudi Arabia and a mosquito was coming out. I said, this is the mosquito we imported from Nigeria. In Saudi Arabia, if you enter the country with malaria, you will die with your malaria because they do not have remedies for malaria, because it is an issue that completely is non-existent in their country. I think the robust nature of our debate today on the floor and the conclusion underscore the concern of the Parliament to these menace and the readiness of the Parliament to empower whichever organ of government is responsible to ensure that we tackle this headlong and perhaps for the first time to see if we can have a permanent solution to it. I salute my colleagues that brought up this twin, they are not twins, called the bill that we have nothing to celebrate. Whoever hold that opinion, in my own opinion, must be an extremist. Must be one, in my own opinion, who never see good in our country and what we're able to do. Even if we limit to the emergence of a democracy, the fact that Nigerians are unanimous that we have overcome military regime in Nigeria is one fundamental issue that we should celebrate, because we are almost running 20 years now of full-blown democracy in Nigeria. And if you proceed to ask again that what are the consequences, they are too numerous to be addressed within this limited time we have in this interview. But the most fundamental of it is that as a country we have reached a crescendo in observing the rule of law in Nigeria. Whether you like it or you don't like it, Nigeria, particularly under President Buhari, have reached a crescendo. And I stand to be challenged by whoever, and I will not be guilty of oral diarrhea if I begin to dish out reasons. It is a consequence of the rule of law as guaranteed by the current regime that a sitting president and his party was in total control of all paraphernalia of office, that his party won through ballot an election in the state, election into the Senate, into the House of Representatives, into the Assembly, and the court removed it from them. This is not from an opposition state. It is from a state that have the president in the same party with the state, and the entire political structure was taken away and given to opposition. If there is no rule of law, nobody will have ever contemplated that. And the judges that gave out that verdict suffered no matter how little harassment or victimization of whatever nature. And this is reminiscent of our past. Nobody could have contemplated this. It is a consequence of the rule of law that again in Rivers State, the parties that control the federal government, control INEC and security agencies, was unable to field a candidate in any of the elections. This is the dynamics. In the past, nobody would have contemplated that a party with the president, with control of two-thirds of state and the National Assembly, who have powers to appoint and disappoint the INEC, would not suffer the consequences and powers of INEC, removing candidates of the ruling party from participating. Without rule of law, nobody would have contemplated that. So even for the attainment of the rule of law, as far as we are concerned, we have a lot and a lot to celebrate as a country. We want to mention challenges of underdevelopment. Those are challenges that are associated with governance, and as we proceed in democracy, which points on us accountability to the people, we shall continue to grow from strength to strength. For me, we have every reason to celebrate as a country.
So, it's one more.
So, can you just speak on there is this newspaper, I heard so many issues against Buhari concerning the Court of Appeal and all that. I heard of 66 count charge against Buhari that for Buhari not to be president of this country by former Vice President of Nigeria, Vice President Atiku.
Well, it is normal. It is normal and concede to victory as usually announced by the electoral umpire. So we have made it a vocation. I don't know whether you are aware there are electoral tribunals in the United States. Have you had any electoral tribunal in the United States? But those who approach the court for redress have not committed any offense as far as our laws concerned. Atiku, for me, represents the greatest visitor to court in Nigeria, because with due respect to him, because he is redundant without anything to do now, he needed a space to be heard, to be seen, and to be seen to be doing something. Otherwise, for any reasonable and sane person that listen to the analysis of the judgment of the tribunal knows that going to Supreme Court will only result, I pray so, result in Atiku not only losing his case at the Supreme Court, but a fine probably might follow. And as a consequence, whatever President Buhari have spent in the course of this litigation, Atiku might be forced, truly speaking, to settle it. Because even though we are not students of law, but we were drilled for 8 hours by the presiding judges, one after the other, not one dissecting, not one. And you know that, politically speaking, the judiciary are actually not friends of this government. And therefore, if there are any legal ground, it is my belief that they will have knocked out the announcement of INEC. But that petition stood on its head ab initio. It is a frivolous petition intended to waste the time of Nigerians, and I am not surprised that Atiku approached the court empty-handed and he left empty-handed. And it is my belief, even though I'm not a lawyer, that he will not only leave empty-handed in the Supreme Court, he will be forced to provide some relief to Nigeria for wasting our time and distracting the government of the day.